Hello and welcome to episode 21 of Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. Today's guest is Cat Duval. Now, Cat left the hectic nocturnal lifestyle of the music industry and became a yoga practitioner, seeking the science of happiness and helping to develop practices of presence and in the now. But as a yoga practitioner, she found herself running from class to class with a rucksack on her back, and she realized that she was heading towards burnout again, and that this business model just wasn't sustainable. So, in today's episode, Kat and I discuss different practices in yoga, because coming from a high achieving background, I never found the time to spend on an hour-long yoga salutation. So she teaches us shorter yoga practices and techniques that we can implement into our busy lifestyles to help restore that energy and seek that balance we all desire. If you enjoyed this episode, you can join the discussion over at giveyourselfsomeleeway.com, on our social media, or shoot me an email, eugene@leeway.ie. Thank you, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode with Cat Duval. So, Kat, it's great for you to join us here on Give Yourself Some Leeway. I think one thing that I always like to get started with, especially with coaches, it's there's this spark somewhere, like this turning point somewhere in their life that made them go from their day job to coaching. And what I'd like to hear is where you get that spark or that vision, and what was that turning point for you? What makes you do what you do?
So I used to work, I've never done the corporate thing, but I used to work in music, and it was largely nocturnal, really long hours, and events. I worked in events and I absolutely loved it. And there was an element of sort of glam and fun, but it was really tough work and super long hours and generally underpaid. So I'm sure that, many of your listeners may be able to identify to at least one aspect of that. And my moment came really when I just knew that it was going to take its toll, and it actually took its toll on I lost two friends, and that was due to the lifestyle. It wasn't directly due to burnout, but it was due to just a mega unhealthy lifestyle. And I just knew that there would be something more to life, really. And at my local gym, I thought I'd try yoga, and I always thought it was a bit slow for me. I always thought, no, I'm more of a HIIT girl, or I want to go for a run, or I want to do some kickboxing or something. And I thought, no, I'll give it a go. I just feel really drained and worn down. And she was wonderful. She did visualization. She did some really easy sun salutations, which are where you get to move all the major joints of the body. And so it was really accessible for me, a sort of non-yogi, non-limber type. Quite strong naturally I am. So I've literally worked for every inch of flexibility that I've got. So for anyone out there that's feeling like, oh, I'm not a yogi because I'm not bendy, I was there where you are. And so I came out of that yoga class and going to the gym that day, just feeling like I was walking on air. And I really didn't know that there was this out there before that point. And it was a massive turning point for me. I was absolutely glowing from the inside out. I think probably for the first time, certainly consciously ever, but obviously there were happy events in my life. And, I'd been having lots of happiness before that. But in terms of the work-life balance, it was massively out of whack. And I think we have huge coping mechanisms that mean that we barely realize when we're burning out until we're out the other side. You don't realize how much energy you haven't got until you've got more energy again. And that's, I think, part of the danger of this. And so my journey into coaching came very much through yoga and teaching lots of yoga classes and actually burning myself out doing that. So running around all over the place to different people's houses, different studios, classes. And yoga classes are mainly during meal times. They're sort of breakfast, pre-work, they're lunchtime, and then they're after work. So you're pretty much eating your dinner over the sink for sort of years quickly before you cycle out and run around somewhere. So the feeling of chasing a tail really drove me to look at the model that I was using, the business model that I was using, and the work habits that I had And I decided that I was going to create them rather than be defined by the status quo. And I set up different courses, and I set up a different sort of strand of my business. So I do yoga celebration events, which I won't talk about too much now, but it's for sort of birthdays, weddings, hen parties, stag parties even, but it's all about, and actually events and ceremonies and conferences and things, sort of team building, but it's all about bringing everyone together in a yogic way, in a meaningful way, providing ceremony and celebration, and actually enjoying the process of yoga and having healing happen through smiling and connection in a fun way that's not weird, you know, for getting strangers to touch each other without them feeling odd about it, like with them being entertained in the process. And then with the coaching, it was really looking at what problems my clients were having. And there were lots of mindset blocks. There were lots of, no, I'm fine, until suddenly you're not fine. You know, you're running along and it's, yeah, just trying to address that and sort of where does that stem from? And burnout is a huge issue, massive global issue, especially in the last few years with people working largely online and being isolated. But it's kind of a hangover from this, you know, you're working better if you're working harder, and working harder is working longer. And it's really a myth, because there's more and more research being done now to say that actually we are at our most productive for like a 4-hour window of the day, you know, and optimizing our energy. So, you know, the old school idea of optimizing time, and actually in the new school, it's much more about optimizing the energy, about how I can, where I put my energy, where I am being mindful of that and intentional about it. So that's kind of, yeah, it was through my own personal experience of burnout, through the music industry, but then through yoga. I got this idea of, but it's through the business model I was using that then drove me to kind of look for an alternative. And since doing that, I'm not going to say it's always easy, but it's certainly liberating and inspiring, and I feel very self-motivated in this ride, you know. And it is a ride. When you're running your own business, it's a massive ride. You know, there's ups and downs and twists and turns in ways that you can't foresee. But if you've got a daily rhythm and a daily ritual, and you've got healthy practices ingrained into the sort of structure of your life, then you have much more resilience and much more bounce to kind of walk with that spring in a step, and for life not to get you down, you know.
Yeah, I get it. I actually find it funny when you said that you burnt out as a result of yoga because of your business model. And just brought me back to a conversation I had with another interview, another guest, and they said that if you burn out because of your business model, it's usually because you don't have a business model. And and I thought it was kind of funny, because I was like, oh, it's kind of like you leave like typically people leave the office job to become an entrepreneur, or to become self-employed, and they end up burning out as a result, because they're running here and there and trying to do every job all at once. And it's just trying to find that balance again. It's like you left because you didn't have balance, and then you tried doing everything yourself, and then you have no balance whatsoever, and you burn out completely. And next thing, some people get into the spiral of, well, maybe being self-employed isn't for me, maybe I should get back into the rat race. And it's just a continuous down spiral.
Yeah,
Again, that's just me going off on a tangent.
no, not at all. It's so relevant, Eugene, because I think it's a huge difference with our mentality around something, and it makes a big difference to be autonomous and to be self-driven. And so often when we have our own project business, you know, it can be a side hustle, it can be running your own business full time, it can be just passion projects. But when you've got something that is yours, you tend to go above and beyond. And the old school recognition of above and beyond was working evenings and weekends, right? So above and beyond, if we're reframing it, is really about going the extra mile in terms of the output, you know, what you create from it. So the output could be take you a fraction of the time, but just have a massive reach, you know, and be super efficient. And so when we've got our own projects, we tend to really want to pull out all the stops, and it is a struggle to wear all the hats when you're, you know, when you're working for yourself and you're the accountant and the marketeer and the business developer and the, you know, the CEO and the person also in the business delivering the product or the service. So yeah, that is a challenge, and there are structures, and some work for some people and some for others. And actually that's part of, I've got a program, the Burnout Recovery Yoga Pathway, that dives into what is your rhythm, you know, what's the appropriate structure for you that works with your energy levels, so that we can, you know, get more mindful about planning our time and energy. And I think that's what leads people to burnout a lot of the time, is that they're not aware of how I can manage my energy so as I optimize it and I still have some left for myself and my loved ones, you know, and doing fun stuff. And they go, no, I've got to give every single drop of energy that I have into this business if I'm worthy of being an entrepreneur. And actually the opposite is true. If you look at people that are super successful, they are people that are very disciplined and boundaried around what they say yes to and what they say no to, and how they structure their days and what they prioritize. And yeah, so it really rings true what you say. Like, I'm not sure I'd go so far as to say haven't got a business model. I think if you are not creating it in a way that works for you and your business, if you're being run by how you think it's expected to be, you know, what's expected of you, or how, in my case, it was, I'm expected to run these yoga classes at these times a day because that's just the done thing, and I need to be, you know, delivering to my clients, so I'll go to them, you know. And actually I deliver far better when I have a lovely yoga studio area set up that they come to, because I am embodying what they want from me. You know, I can be calm and relaxed and hold the space and have the books and reference guides there, you know, that are going to come in handy, and the tools and the props. Whereas if I'm, you know, running around with a rucksack, I'm going to be much more hectic, and maybe traffic will come into play and I might arrive stressed, and then I have to pretend that I'm calm, the calm yoga teacher, and then it feels inauthentic, you know. So I think it applies whatever the role. It's like you've got to, you know, really be intentional to be truly successful, and success can mean whatever you want it to mean. You know, it's not this kind of exterior definition. That's the big thing, is that when we are autonomous and making the choices rather than having them imposed upon us.
Yeah, I suppose I better rephrase that. It's not having a business model, but not having a sustainable business model. And again, yeah, as you said there, running around with a rucksack, and like, even if you try to, let's say, fake it and try to be calm for your clients, it's like they can still feel that energy. If you have pent up stress, they're still going to feel that. If you're telling them to take deep breaths, but they can see that you're going red in the face in the corner, like they can feel that off you too. So it's again, it's trying to strike that balance yourself so that they can feel the calm energy from you, so that they can be like, okay, I can get that vibe, that energy from Cat. I want to achieve that balance, and that's why I'm attending this class.
Well, exactly, that's it. And I think those days did teach me how to regulate my emotions and my mindset, and really sort of take control over feelings of anxiety, and lots of very beneficial practices I learned during those days because it was required of me. And I think there is an underlying level of tension that all entrepreneurs walk around with, and small business owners and sole traders. This kind of low level anxiety of, am I going to be able to pay the rent, you know, or am I going to be able to fulfill on my promises this month? And because it, you know, and because there is so much that's uncertain about that life. And I think in contrast, when you've got a job that has really long shifts, or shift work in general, where you're changing your daily rhythm regularly and you don't settle into a pattern, it really messes with your circadian rhythms. And so there are ways that we can reset that so as to be a benefit to people that are doing shift work, because it's so important to be in sync. And it really can make you feel really spacey and out of whack, and like you're just living sort of, churning through each day, without much energy to give to the rest of your life when you're doing shift work. It's like, right, hunker down, batten down the hatches, I'm going in, see you in a couple of weeks. And life doesn't need to be like that. Like, it doesn't need to, life can be so much more than that, and we all deserve that. And it's just about, the tools and practices are out there, they're freely available. But there's sometimes it's too confusing to really sift through the sea of information that we've got available to us now. So that's why I put the burnout recovery pathway together, to sort of offer a step-by-step program that helps walk people through the process. Because when you're experiencing levels of burnout, you really don't need, another 100 things to do to add to the to-do list. It's more like you want to get the experience, of, oh gosh, I feel better, I feel reset.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that Give Yourself Some Leeway is all about. It's about when people are looking for the cure-all or the quick fix, and next thing they're bombarded with all these quick fix tools, and next thing they're overwhelmed by, okay, but which one is right for me? And it's about taking a step back and being like, okay, what are the simplest actionable steps that I can take right now, that I can start implementing into my day-to-day routine, that will have an effect if I do it long term,
Yes,
rather than looking for that one quick fix.
Yes, I love it, Eugene. Yeah, we were talking about that when we first connected, and I really respect that. It's so helpful. Yeah, that next right step, and then it can be, putting the next foot in front of the other, and then the next one. It's the step by step. The incremental steps make the huge changes. They're really underestimated. All the people having big stretch goals, having sort of big dreams is exciting, but it's disproportionately represented as what goals are. Goals aren't so much those. Yes, it's great to have your big, pin the picture on the wall vision, but actually what makes the changes are those step-by-step processes. It's that next right thing that you do today, that you decide, I'm going to do this for a minute. And then if you enjoy it, you end up doing it for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Maybe in a month, you'll be doing it for 10 or 20 minutes. And you'll feel so satisfied with yourself. Like, such a sense of achievement and confidence comes from just putting that one foot in the front of the other, making those tiny steps, and building on those over time. And the difference it can make in health and well-being just cannot be underestimated. It's really, really big, really huge, just making those small steps. So it's brilliant the work you're doing, Eugene. It's amazing.
Thank you. I suppose getting back to especially your yoga approach, it's how do you get someone, especially if they're probably burnt out because they're a high achiever, constantly on go, probably running on autopilot. How do you get them to take a moment to step back and do something as mindful as yoga?
So yoga is commonly misconstrued as just stretching and breathing. And whilst those are hugely important and impactful, yoga is actually 8 limbs of yoga. I won't go too heavily into it now, but it's from the way that we treat ourselves, to the way that we show up with friends and family, to the way that we move, the way that we breathe, the way that we concentrate and focus the mind, leading to meditation, then leading to samadhi, which is bliss. And it's not a linear pathway. Like, we can dip into different bits, so I think talking about yoga is very much you as a whole being. You are a moving, speaking, thinking, feeling, experiential human being. So there are many aspects that are going on simultaneously, and it's really important that we address that we are not just thinking at one point and then just feeling at another point. We're not just moving at another point. We're doing all of these things, and we sit in the context of our culture and our socioeconomic background and experience of the now and the political landscape and the environmental landscape. You know, there are many layers to this. And so true yoga is about, let's get into the body, let's get to know where I'm at right now and see what I can do to make a positive impact on that, on how I'm feeling and where I'm at right now. And it's sort of can be much more gentle than doing one-arm handstands off the end of a cliff, although that looks good on Instagram. If you start looking at those, you'll be scrolling on Instagram for 3 hours. So my approach is, first of all, let's look at what stress is. And there's so much negative connotation around stress. And actually, to get into a state of flow, you were talking about high achieving. We want a state of flow, and there is an element of stress required for that. And a flow state is an optimal state of really getting into the zone. We call it, athletes call it getting in the zone, but artists and writers have it too. And it's there's a series of parameters, and it's about getting the sort of biting point between our skill level and our attention and the level of challenge. And so that we create this environment where we really disappear into what we're doing. We lose our sense of self, and we just dive into it. So it's a really getting into the creative zone of genius, and it really can apply to anything that you're passionate about. So the difference between stress, bad stress, and a state of flow, and how we get more into that state of flow, and to refine the yoga practice so as you listen to your body, you understand what it's trying to tell you, and that you can make healthy choices for longevity, for wholeness and wellness. So yeah, there's 4 types of stress, so we go into that. So that's kind of where we start. And then we look at rest and restore practices. So what do you actually do when you're resting and restoring? Do you just veg in front of the telly? Because I can tell you now, your body is not relaxed, and you're probably watching some horrific thing, or, you know, something that's building tension and drama. So you'll be holding that on your body. So it's learning to choose your emotional state, and it's letting go of repeating negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, we call it. And it's about igniting our imagination for a fresh start, really, and taking space for you. And so creating your own yoga nidra, which is it's like awake sleep is the literal meaning. So yoga nidra goes through 9 different ways of relaxing, and it's a traditional ancient practice, and it's very accessible, and you can do it sitting up or lying down. And it's a brilliant way of resetting the body. And actually in yoga kits, they say that it's the same as having 4 hours sleep to do a 10-minute yoga nidra. So it can be pretty helpful if you're doing shift work and things. So yeah, we go through the how-tos of that and then put that into practice. And then it's about priming the mind. So it's about getting right, where is my vision? You know, where is that stretch goal, that pin on the vision board, where I want my life to be or what I want to create? And what language am I using in my own life? Like, how am I limiting myself in my language? And what views have I taken on from the people that I care about? And some people I don't, but still their comments have pierced me somehow, and I walk around carrying it, you know. And it's letting go of those negative beliefs and rewiring your brain to make it more likely that you would think positively for positive outcomes and look for the positives and things. So there's lots of science to say that our actual DNA expression is altered by the power of thought. It's quite exciting. Joe Dispenza's done a whole bunch of work on it, but it's also, there are TED Talks on it. I find this stuff fascinating. But it's very useful for Olympians, and athletes have used visualization for years for this reason, because our brains think that when we're dress rehearsing something by visualizing it, our brains think it's happening. So if you're watching a scary movie, then you will live it. Your body on some level will live that experience. Might think twice about what I'm going to watch. but we can use that to our advantage when we do visualization. So we can dress rehearse something. Maybe you've got to give a talk in front of a group, or maybe you want to envision a day that you're going to be living on the beach, you know, and really dress rehearsing it over and over again in your mind makes us come up against the resistances that we have. So often we'll get in the way of ourselves. If we reach too high and it's far away from who we think we are, then we sort of chop off the tall poppy for ourselves. You know, we actually cut ourselves back down to size. So it's about re-identifying, like it allows us to look at, to be that person, what is in the way? What's the negative language I'm using? What are the habits that I'm using to sort of hold myself back? Are my people around me, is my community supportive of this kind of dream? And if they're not, we're likely to sabotage it, because we want to fit in. We're social creatures. So we need to get people that are in that world, that are living closer to where we want to be, and have them be influential in our lives, which is why we, you know, influencers is such a thing, and coaching such a thing. Because if someone's really good at it, if you want to be an amazing pianist, then you're only going to get so good practicing on your own in your room. You know, what you need is someone that's incredible to influence you. And then it's, you know, once you've primed your minds, then it's around putting that into your schedule. Like, it's all very well and good having great ideas and great practices, but unless we actually put that into our rhythm, then it's, you know, we often drop the ball and we don't achieve our goals. And the reason why is because we don't make it a daily rhythm. So yeah, how to master our attention is really key. I call it sacred scheduling. And it's about, okay, when's your PowerPoint in the day? Like, where do you wake up feeling really buzzy? Some people are really great morning people. Or are you a bit slow in the morning and then you're really on form, say mid-afternoon? You know, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Do you get energy from people? So if you're an extrovert, then how could you tweak your schedule so that when you're feeling a bit low, that's when you have your meetings, or that's when you have your client meetings, or you go and you go to a networking event, so that it then replenishes you because you're around people as an extrovert. Or if you're an introvert, you make sure that you're having your research time, or, you know, the time when you're you don't have to have people interaction during those times. And if we sort of adapt our tasks, the way that we block out our time in the day to match our energy more, then the day becomes naturally more harmonious. Yeah, so, and also we can access our sort of creative zone of genius much faster, because we'll get things done much more easily, with much more ease, and that will make us feel good. So we'll end up having much more energy for our loved ones and for adventures with friends and family and stuff. Is this making sense so far?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed with all this yoga
Yeah.
teachings, but
Sorry.
it's definitely, people can press pause and take in what they can, then press play again.
Yeah. It was just kind of one step to the next.
Yeah.
So just, I mean, quickly to make it nice and clear, you've got 5 steps. And the first is looking at the 4 stages of stress versus flow. The next step is rest and restore. What are your practices? What are some new ones? And, you know, do they help you? Let's experiment. 3 is prime the mind. So what language are you using? What is your mindset? Where do you want to be going in your life? And who is living that way that you can get inspiration from? Then what's your schedule like? Is your schedule set so that you can actually have enough rest time, you know, have time to do the hobbies that make you happy, the things that give you energy? And how can you sort the daily rhythm to optimize where your natural energy comes? And then it's ritualizing happiness. So the 5th and final step is ritualize happiness. And it's like using yeah, just putting that into practice, and then making mistakes and then refining it again, or finding that something works better than another thing. But it's just ritualizing that, you know. Yeah, so that's my little pathway.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I think one last thing I think is if people wanted to get started in yoga, what would be let's say, what would be your introduction to yoga for someone? Would it be the yoga nidra you said, where it was just simply lying down, and so like a simple technique like that? Or how would you say, if someone wanted to try out yoga today after they go home from work, what would they do?
Okay, so do you want to do a little thing now? We can do it sitting down.
Yeah, you can do sitting down, yeah.
So so uncross your legs if they're crossed, place your feet flat on the ground, anyone who's listening, and sit up really nice and tall, so your spine is nice and tall, and then just rest your hands on your lap or on the table or on the arms of your chair, and just take a deep inhale and exhale, and just begin to imagine that the breath is a wave traveling from the ground right all the way up to the top of your head and then back down again. And so as you breathe in, first of all, fill out your belly so that it swells out. So ladies, just go against the grain on this one. Just relaxing the tummy so that it can swell out on the in-breath. So you're filling your belly full of air. And then from your belly, move up to the ribs, and you can place your hands on the ribs to just let the ribs swell out. All right. And then lastly, you fill up your chest full of air. So you're breathing in first through the belly, then the ribs, and then the chest. And as you breathe out, it's the reverse order. You breathe chest first, then ribs, then belly. Get it? So you're bringing it up from the ground all the way. Belly first, then rib cage, then chest. Breathing out, chest first, then rib cage, then belly. And you'll find that your heart rate drops. Your shoulders begin to relax away from your ears, and you're naturally tapping into your parasympathetic nervous system, your ability to rest and digest. So if you want to help that along, we can do a little breathing technique. So everyone give me your nanu nanu hands. So you're taking the first two fingers and you're placing it in between the eyebrows, just above, in a comfortable spot, just on the forehead. And then you take the thumb on one nostril and you breathe in through the nostril that's still open. On a count of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you hold both nostrils. So the fingers that are left hold the nostril. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then release the thumb. So you breathe out of that nostril that you just sealed. And then inhale again through that same side with the thumb released through that side of the nostril. Then hold both nostrils. 3 and 4. And then release your fingers and breathe out that first nostril. All right. So breathing in, seal them both, holding, releasing your thumb, breathing out, and then breathing in and hold. 3 and 4, release the fingers, breathing out. 3 and 4, and release. And take a deep breath in and out. So that is a pranayama, or a breath control technique called Nadi Shuddhi. And what that means is energy cleansing. So it's a balancing exercise. If you're feeling really angsty and full on, or you're feeling a bit sloth-like, it helps bring you back to a middle place. And it does that by equalizing the breath in each of the nostrils. So yeah, really good anti-anxiety one, that. So if you're ever feeling a bit overwhelmed, that's a really good one.
It's a great one for a very stressful meeting with your boss, or after an hour stuck in traffic, finally getting home.
exactly. Definitely don't do it in the car.
Don't do it in the car, yes.
Yeah, but really also just noticing how you're feeling. That's yoga too. You know, if you're super stressed and you go, ooh, and you're almost going to pop, and you just go, no, breathe, and you just count to 10. That also is yoga, you know, becoming more aware and intentional about how we show up. All of that is yoga. So even if you think you're not a yogi, if you've got a sense of intention about the way you want to be, then you are. Yeah, anyone can do it, really.
That's brilliant, Kat. I suppose for any listeners who'd like to find out more about you, where can they find out more about Kat and your yoga and your programs?
So I have a free challenge coming up, actually. And depending on when the podcast goes out, it will be either in a few weeks or in a couple of weeks time. So it's happening starting on the 20th of March with a new moon, and for 5 days. And it's about looking at one aspect of a daily ritual each day for 5 days. And we do a whole morning ritual on the Friday. So we're just talking about why it's good, giving it a go, looking at the science behind it and the evidence as to the benefits. You get to try it out, decide whether you like it, and then you do another one on the next day. And then on the Friday, you put it all together. So if you're interested, it's super free, and not just free, it's super free. Hang on, let me just tell you the...
Yeah, I can see the link in the show notes as well. So
oh, great. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, that's no problem.
So it's catduval.9livesyoga, that's all words, 9livesyoga.com /5-day reset.
5-day reset. Brilliant.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and apart from that, I'm on all the normal channels. You can just look for 9 Lives Yoga or Cat Duval with a C and 1 L.
Awesome. Well, I hope you liked this episode, and I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, subscribe to the show, because it makes sure that you don't miss out on new episodes. And it also helps me, because it increases the rankings of the show a little bit, which of course makes it a little more easily found by other people who may like it just as much as you. And if you didn't like this episode, or anything about the show in general, or if you have any ideas or suggestions, or just feedback that you want to share, shoot me an email, eugene@leeway.ie, and let me know what I could do better, or just what your thoughts are on what you'd like to see me do in the future. I read everything myself. I'm always looking for new ideas and constructive feedback. So thanks again for listening to this episode, and I hope to hear from you soon.